Shinto Shrine was originally built by a family, and then when they decided to centralize all the Shinto shrines in Japan, because they wanted more loyalty to the emperor, they decided to destroy a lot of the little local shrines. So the family had just built it, so they decided to actually move it up on the hillside on their property, and they kept it there for years and years. And with Shinto shrines, quite often every 20-30 years you're supposed to rebuild them. It's a sign of purification. But in this particular case, they had sort of hid it on their property, and it was there for a long time. And then when the family fell upon hard times in the 1980s, they decided to sell it. So it was eventually sold to a dealer who was going to saw off the various ornaments and sell them as individual pieces. The shrine had been a little bit damaged by a typhoon. Anyways, they were trying to sell it to an American dealer in Seattle, and he said, oh, can I buy the whole thing rather than just pieces of it? So he bought the whole thing, and then he began approaching museums around North America to see if they wanted to buy it. He approached us. We applied to the BC Lottery Fund, and for some reason they decided to give us the money. So we paid for the purchase of it and the bringing of it over to Canada. Now, when it was on the hillside, there was really no roads up there, so they had put down planks and then put skids on it and sort of slowly push it down the mountain. And they eventually got to these very, very narrow roads. And the authorities said, well, what happens if there's a fire or we need an ambulance? So they had to make the guarantee that if there was a problem, they would simply bulldoze it into the river. There's a little river nearby. So fortunately, nothing happened. They got it down the mountain. A couple of days later, they did have an emergency, so we were a bit lucky. So the actual shrine had passed through a few people's hands. It was originally in the family's hands. They sold it to a dealer. The dealer lost in a game of mahjong. And eventually it was sold to the Seattle dealer, so he wanted to purchase the whole thing. It came over here in parts, basically just the roof and the base, and it was brought in with a huge crane from the street nearby, and then we slowly put it in here, had to lift it up and set it down again. It's now been here for, I guess, since 1986, so it's about 25 years. So it's a long time to have this. It's the only authentic Shinto shrine that we know of outside of Japan. And in Japan, a lot of these were, as I said, they're constantly being rebuilt. Nowadays, they're using concrete, so they don't have this beautiful old kayaki wood in use anymore. So this is sort of a neat piece to have, even though it's slowly deteriorating. Should last a long time because the wood's very hard, and we covered it with zinc naphthalate, so it keeps out insects, and it should be able to survive for quite some time. We're hoping eventually when we get a new gallery to have it inside, perhaps in a rotunda, and then it can be preserved for good. But it should be okay for about another 2 or 3 decades. It hasn't deteriorated too much in that time. So it was originally built in 1899, so it's over 100 years old.